Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the stars began to move. He floated near the observation window of the International Space Station watching Earth, turned slowly below when massive shapes emerged from empty space. The ships were huge beyond anything humans had ever built, and they appeared without warning above every major city on the planet. Jake grabbed the radio and called Houston, but the line was already busy with panicked voices. Ground control was shouting about objects over New York and London and Tokyo. The alien vessels hung in the sky like dark clouds blocking out the sun. Each ship was miles long with smooth black surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Down on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter was in the command center at NORAD when the first reports came in. Her screen showed the same impossible sight repeated across the globe. 12 massive alien ships positioned themselves over the most populated areas of Earth. The ships did nothing at first except hover there like sleeping giants. The silence lasted exactly 1 hour. Then every television screen, radio, and phone on Earth received the same message. The voice spoke perfect English, but there was something cold about it that made people stop whatever they were doing to listen. People of Earth, your primitive civilization has been selected for absorption into the Zephyrian Empire. You will cease all military activities and prepare for processing. Your leaders will report to designated areas for instruction. Compliance will ensure minimal casualties during transition. You have 72 hours? The message repeated in every language on Earth. In Washington, President Don Hayes called an emergency meeting. Military leaders from around the world joined by video link. Everyone was asking the same questions, but nobody had answers. General Maya Rodriguez spoke first from her base in Colorado. "Sir, we need to assume hostile intent. These beings traveled across space to get here, and they're not asking for permission." President Hayes looked at the faces on the screens. Every world leader was dealing with the same crisis. "What are our options, Lisa?" Admiral Carter pulled up tactical displays. The ships are maintaining position at approximately 10,000 feet above major population centers. They've deployed some kind of energy barrier around each city. Our satellites show strange readings, but we can't get clear scans through whatever they're using. In Chicago, Commander Alex Stone was watching the alien ship through binoculars from the roof of a police station. The massive vessel cast shadows over downtown, making the afternoon look like twilight. People were fleeing the city, in cars and on foot, but the roads were jammed with traffic. Stone had been a Marine before joining the police force. He knew what invasion looked like, even if this one came from space. "They're softening us up," he told the other officers, "making us scared before they make their move." The evacuation continued for 3 days. Government officials tried to maintain order, but panic was spreading faster than any official response. Some people headed for the mountains while others locked themselves in their homes. The aliens made no other contact during this time. On the 3rd day, the ships began to descend. Smaller craft emerged from the main vessels like insects leaving a hive. These landing ships were still huge by human standards, but they moved with purpose towards specific targets. Military bases, government buildings, and communication centers were the first to be surrounded. The Zephyrian ground forces that emerged wore sleek armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. They moved with mechanical precision, as if they had done this many times before. Their faces were hidden behind dark visors, but their body language suggested complete confidence. The alien commander who stepped out of the first landing craft in Washington was tall and thin with pale blue skin, visible at the joints of his armor. He spoke to the gathered human officials in the same cold voice from the broadcast. "I am Commander Vex of the Zephyrian 4th Fleet. Your species will be relocated to processing centers for evaluation and assignment. Those who comply will be treated according to galactic standards for primitive races." President Hayes stepped forward, surrounded by Secret Service agents. "We demand to know your intentions. Earth is a sovereign world." Commander Vex tilted his head as if the concept was amusing. "Sovereignty is earned through strength. Your species has neither the technology nor the unity to resist. We have absorbed 47 worlds using these same methods. Submit now and reduce unnecessary casualties." What the aliens did not understand was that humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. Every nation on Earth had military forces trained for combat. More importantly, every human civilian had grown up hearing stories of wars and battles and heroes who fought against impossible odds. In cities around the world, the same scene was playing out. Alien forces were establishing control points and issuing orders. But instead of compliance, they found something they had never encountered before. Humans were not running away or hiding. They were getting angry. Commander Stone gathered his officers in the basement of the police station. Outside, Zephyrian troops were setting up barriers and scanning equipment. "They think we're going to roll over like dogs," Stone said. "Time to show them what happens when someone threatens our home?" 3 weeks had passed since the aliens arrived, and the Zephyrians were learning their first hard lesson about humans. Commander Vex stood in his command center staring at reports that made no sense according to his species' experience. Every other world they had conquered had surrendered within days, but Earth was different. The humans were not just resisting, they were fighting back with a creativity that baffled the alien commanders. In New York, subway tunnels had become networks for moving weapons and people. In London, civilians were using centuries-old tunnel systems to attack Zephyrian patrols. Every major city had become a maze of hidden passages and unexpected ambush. General Maya Rodriguez had moved her command center deep into the Rocky Mountains, where natural caves provided protection from alien scanners. She coordinated with resistance cells around the world using communication methods the aliens had not thought to monitor. Ham radio operators and even message runners on bicycles were keeping human forces connected. The Zephyrians had expected to control Earth by holding the major cities, but humans were making that impossible. Dr. Ben Clark worked in a hidden laboratory beneath Detroit, where he and other scientists studied captured alien equipment. Every piece of Zephyrian technology that fell into human hands was taken apart, examined, and copied. "Their weapons use focused energy beams," Clark explained to his team. "But the power source is similar to our fusion reactors, just more advanced. If we can understand the focusing mechanism, we might be able to build our own." Above ground, the war was becoming more brutal each day. The aliens made their biggest mistake when they decided that terror would break human spirit. Zephyrian forces attacked a refugee camp outside Denver, killing thousands of civilians, including women and children. The massacre was broadcast around the world, and the response was immediate. Humans who had been hiding came out to fight. Civilians who had never held weapons before began making bombs in their kitchens. The phrase, "Remember Denver," spread from person to person, becoming a battle cry that united every human on the planet. Sam Johnson had been retired from the Marines for 10 years when the aliens came. He was living quietly in small-town Ohio when news of Denver reached him. The next day, he was teaching neighborhood families how to make improvised explosives using household chemicals. "The bastards think we'll break if they hurt our people," Johnson told a group of suburban parents and teenagers. "They don't understand that every time they kill one of us, they create 10 more fighters." Communications specialist Kate Sullivan had worked for a tech company before the invasion. Now she was using her skills to connect resistance groups across continents. She had figured out how to piggyback messages on alien communication networks, so the Zephyrians were unknowingly carrying human intelligence. The aliens were also discovering that humans learned faster than any species they had encountered. Weapons that worked perfectly against other conquered races were being countered within days of first use. Zephyrian energy shields that had seemed impenetrable were being overcome by human engineers who studied the technology and found weaknesses. In Chicago, Commander Stone led his police officers and volunteer fighters in daily raids against alien positions. They had learned to hit fast and disappear before the Zephyrians could respond. Stone's group had captured enough alien weapons to arm 50 fighters, and they were teaching other cells how to use them. The psychological impact on Zephyrian forces was becoming severe. These aliens had conquered dozens of worlds without losing a single major battle. Their troops were trained to fight conventional armies, not ghosts who appeared from nowhere, struck hard and vanished. Commander Vex received a communication from the Zephyrian High Command demanding explanations. His superiors could not understand why a primitive world was causing so much trouble. Other planets had been pacified with minimal losses, but Earth was becoming a meat grinder for Zephyrian troops. The humans do not follow expected patterns, Vex reported. They continue fighting even when defeat appears certain. Their tactics change faster than we can adapt, and they show no regard for their own casualties. What the aliens failed to understand was that humans had been preparing for this war their entire history. Every human culture had stories of heroes who fought against overwhelming odds. Military academies taught lessons from thousands of battles. Even children played war games that taught basic strategy and tactics. Maria Santos had been working in an auto factory in Detroit when the aliens came. Now she was leading a group that had turned the factory into a weapons production facility. They were building modified vehicles that could ram through Zephyrian barriers and improvised artillery that could damage alien aircraft. The Zephyrians tried to cut human supply lines but found that impossible. Humans were incredibly good at moving things through hostile territory. Truck drivers who had delivered goods for decades now smuggled weapons and ammunition. Farmers who knew every back road became the backbone of the resistance supply network. 6 months after the invasion, the situation had become so bad that Zephyrian reinforcements were being called in from other conquered worlds. The Fourth Fleet was taking casualties at a rate that shocked the alien high command. Worse yet, the humans were not just defending, they were learning to attack. Lieutenant Commander Nina Walsh had been captain of a Coast Guard cutter before the invasion. She had managed to keep her ship hidden in the vast networks of rivers and coastal waters. Now she was leading a growing fleet of small boats that attacked Zephyrian landing craft and supply ships. The aliens controlled the skies and major cities, but the oceans belonged to humanity. Every fishing boat, pleasure craft, and military vessel that survived the initial assault had become part of an irregular navy that made the seas dangerous for alien forces. The Zephyrian Empire was facing something they had never encountered before. A species that got stronger when attacked. A people who turned every defeat into a lesson and every loss into motivation for revenge. Commander Vex began to suspect that his forces had not invaded a primitive world, but had instead awakened something that should have been left alone. 6 months after the Zephyrian invasion, something impossible was happening, and the aliens knew it. What had started as a routine conquest was turning into the worst military disaster in their empire's history. The humans were not just surviving, they were winning, and that should have been impossible against superior alien technology. Colonel Rick Barnes led the first successful assault on a major Zephyrian stronghold using tactics that would have been suicide 6 months earlier. His modified aircraft flew beneath alien radar using human stealth technology combined with captured Zephyrian shields. The hybrid fighters moved like ghosts through the sky, striking alien positions and vanishing before defensive systems could respond. The attack on the Chicago Command Center lasted only 12 minutes, but it changed everything. Barnes and his pilots destroyed 3 alien dropships, captured enough weapons to arm 200 fighters, and proved that Zephyrian forces could be defeated in direct combat. More importantly, they did it using alien technology that had been reverse engineered by human scientists. Dr. Ben Clark had achieved what Zephyrian engineers thought impossible. Working in hidden laboratories beneath ruined cities, he had cracked the secrets of alien energy weapons. The breakthrough came when his team realized that Zephyrian technology was not actually more advanced than human science, it was just different. They use brute force where we use efficiency, Clark explained to General Rodriguez during a secure video call. Their weapons are powerful but wasteful. We can build better versions using human engineering principles. The first human energy weapons rolled out of secret factories within days of Clark's discovery. These weapons were lighter, more accurate, and more reliable than their alien counterparts. Better yet, they could be manufactured using materials and tools that humans already possessed. Maria Santos had transformed her Detroit factory into a massive production facility that operated 24 hours a day. Former auto workers were now building energy cannons, plasma rifles, and modified vehicles that could punch through alien defenses. The production line techniques that had made human industry dominant on Earth were now being used to mass produce weapons of war. The psychological impact on Zephyrian forces was devastating. They had been trained to believe that their technology was superior to anything primitive species could develop. Now they were being killed by weapons that were based on their own designs but worked better than the originals. Commander Vex stood in his command center watching tactical displays that showed his forces retreating from positions they had held for months. Human fighters were not just defending their territory anymore, they were actively hunting alien patrols and winning every engagement. The tide had turned so completely that Zephyrian troops were afraid to leave their bases. Human snipers using alien weapons could kill from distances that made counterattack impossible. Improvised explosive devices built with Zephyrian technology were destroying alien vehicles faster than replacements could be brought from space. Lieutenant Commander Nina Walsh had expanded her naval operations to include captured alien landing craft. Her growing fleet now controlled most of Earth's coastal waters and was actively hunting Zephyrian supply ships. The aliens had lost command of the seas entirely, and their attempts to maintain supply lines from space were becoming increasingly desperate. In the mountains of Afghanistan, former enemies were now fighting side by side against the alien invaders. Fighters who had spent decades in conflict with each other discovered that humans had more in common than they had differences. The shared threat from space had united Earth's warriors in ways that diplomats had never achieved. The Zephyrians attempted to regain the initiative by calling in their orbital bombardment ships, but found that humans had an answer for that too. Surface-to-air missiles modified with alien targeting systems were bringing down spacecraft that were supposed to be untouchable. Every alien ship that fell provided more technology and more weapons for human forces. Sam Johnson had transformed his small Ohio town into a training center where civilians learned to become soldiers in a matter of weeks. The techniques he developed were being copied around the world as ordinary people became extraordinarily effective fighters. School teachers and store clerks were learning to use alien weapons with deadly efficiency. The aliens made one big mistake, Johnson told a group of new recruits. They thought technology would make up for not understanding their enemy. We've been fighting wars since before we could write, and now they've given us their tools to fight with. Kate Sullivan's communication network had evolved into something the Zephyrians could not counter. Her system used everything from alien technology to smoke signals depending on what worked best in each situation. Human forces were coordinating attacks across continents while alien commanders struggled to maintain contact with their own troops. The Zephyrian High Command was receiving reports that contradicted everything they knew about conquest and warfare. Their Fourth Fleet was not just losing ground, they were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that improved with every battle. Worse yet, the humans were showing no interest in negotiation or surrender. Master Sergeant Carl Douglas had been training elite soldiers before the invasion, and now he was creating something new. His program combined human tactics with alien technology to produce fighters who were more than a match for Zephyrian troops. These hybrid warriors understood both human creativity and alien capabilities. The aliens made another critical error when they tried to negotiate from a position of weakness. Commander Vex sent a message to human leaders offering to discuss terms for coexistence. The response came from President Hayes and was broadcast to every Zephyrian position on Earth. You came to our world uninvited. You killed our people without cause. You threatened our children and destroyed our cities. There will be no negotiation. There will be no coexistence. You will leave our planet or you will die on it. Engineer Lily Thompson had achieved something that shocked even human scientists. Working with captured alien starships, she had successfully reverse-engineered their faster-than-light drive systems. For the first time since the invasion, humans had the capability to take the fight beyond Earth's atmosphere. The first human-built starship was small and crude compared to Zephyrian vessels. But it worked. More importantly, it proved that humans could master any technology given enough time and motivation. The ship was armed with the most advanced weapons human engineers could build and crewed by volunteers, who wanted revenge for what had been done to their world. As the ship prepared for its first mission to attack Zephyrian bases on Mars, the aliens finally understood what they were facing. They had not invaded a primitive world inhabited by simple creatures. They had attacked a species that would pursue enemies across the galaxy to ensure they could never threaten Earth again. 1 year after the Zephyrian invasion, the hunters had become the hunted, and the aliens were learning what terror truly meant. The situation had reversed so completely that human forces were now pursuing fleeing alien troops across multiple continents. What had begun as an occupation had become a systematic extermination of Zephyrian forces on Earth. Ace pilot Tony Mitchell leads squadrons of hybrid fighters that dominated the skies above every major battlefield. The aircraft he flew were built using human engineering principles enhanced with alien technology that had been improved beyond what its original creators thought possible. Mitchell's fighters were faster, more maneuverable, and deadlier than anything in the Zephyrian arsenal. The air war had become so one-sided that alien pilots refused to engage human aircraft unless absolutely necessary. Mitchell and his squadrons hunted Zephyrian ships like wolves tracking wounded prey. Every engagement ended with alien craft falling from the sky, while human fighters returned to base unharmed. Special Forces operative Grace Adams specialized in missions that alien commanders thought impossible. She led teams that infiltrated Zephyrian strongholds, eliminated key personnel, and disappeared without trace. Adams had developed techniques for killing aliens in their own bases, using their own security systems against them. The psychological warfare that Adams perfected was devastating to alien morale. Zephyrian officers would be found dead in locked rooms with no signs of forced entry. Command posts would explode from inside with no indication of how human saboteurs had penetrated alien defenses. The message was clear: nowhere was safe from human revenge. When the Zephyrians attempted to open negotiations, President Hayes' response became legendary throughout the galaxy. The alien delegation that requested terms for withdrawal was met at the White House by the president, flanked by military leaders whose expressions showed no mercy. "You came to our home uninvited," Hayes said to the alien diplomats. "You hurt our people without cause. You threatened our children and tried to steal our world. There will be no negotiation. There will be no terms. There will be no mercy. You wanted Earth, and now Earth wants you gone." The aliens offered humanity junior partnership in their empire, sharing technology and resources in exchange for ending hostilities. Hayes listened to their proposal with the patience of a predator who knew his prey was trapped. When they finished speaking, he gave them his final answer. "Your empire conquered 47 worlds before you came here. Those worlds had people, 2 families, and children and dreams. You took all of that away from them, and now you want to bargain with us. There is only one acceptable outcome. You will leave our planet and you will never return. If we see Zephyrian ships in our solar system again, we will hunt your species to extinction." Master Sergeant Carl Douglas had created something that alien military theorists thought impossible. His training programs produced human soldiers who combined their species' natural aggression with complete mastery of alien technology. These hybrid warriors were individually superior to Zephyrian troops and fought with a coordination that mechanical precision could not match. Douglas trainees understood that they were not just fighting for Earth, but for every world the Zephyrians had conquered. Each battle was fought with the fury of a species that would never again allow aliens to threaten human children. The intensity of human hatred surprised even the humans themselves. Engineer Lily Thompson had achieved breakthrough after breakthrough in starship design. Her teams were now producing vessels that incorporated the best of human engineering with advanced Zephyrian technology. These ships were not copies of alien designs, but entirely new creations that were superior to their inspirations. The first human-built starship had evolved into a fleet of vessels that made Zephyrian commanders nervous. Human ships were smaller than alien equivalents, but faster, more heavily armed, and crewed by people who viewed every battle as personal revenge. The aliens had given humans the tools for interstellar warfare, and now those tools were being used against their creators. Factory supervisor Mike Thompson oversaw production facilities that operated beyond what alien observers thought possible. Human workers, driven by fury over the invasion, were producing spacecraft and weapons at rates that exceeded Zephyrian industrial capacity. Earth had become a war machine focused on a single goal: making the aliens pay for their mistake. The transformation of human society was complete. Every person on Earth was either fighting aliens directly or supporting those who did. Children too young to carry weapons were helping in factories. Elderly people too old to fight were teaching young soldiers about warfare. The entire species had united behind a single purpose. Captain Helen Brooks pioneered boarding actions that turned captured Zephyrian capital ships into human weapons platforms. Her teams had developed techniques for taking control of alien vessels within minutes of making contact. The psychological impact of seeing their own ships turned against them was breaking Zephyrian morale. Brooks and her Marines had learned that aliens in combat were predictable while humans were not. Zephyrian troops followed rigid tactical doctrines while human fighters adapted constantly. This flexibility meant that human boarding parties could overwhelm alien crews even when outnumbered. The aliens discovered that humans did not simply repel invaders, they eliminated threats at their source. Zephyrian supply bases on Mars and the Moon were being systematically destroyed by human forces who showed the same ruthlessness their enemies had once displayed. The war was expanding beyond Earth as humans took the offensive. Communication intercepts revealed that panic was spreading through the Zephyrian Empire. Military commanders who had never lost a battle were requesting reinforcements to deal with a primitive species that should have been conquered in days. The political leadership of the Empire was beginning to question the wisdom of their expansion policies. What terrified the aliens most was that humans were not content to simply drive them away. Every captured Zephyrian soldier was interrogated for information about other conquered worlds. Human forces were already planning liberation campaigns for planets that had fallen to alien conquest decades earlier. The empire that had ruled dozens of star systems through superior technology was facing an enemy that grew stronger through combat. Every battle taught humans new lessons while Zephyrian forces continued using the same failed tactics. The species that had dominated the galaxy through conquest was about to learn what happened when they encountered someone who fought back. As human forces prepared for their first interstellar offensive, the aliens finally understood the magnitude of their error. They had not attacked a primitive world, but had awakened a species that would pursue them across the galaxy until justice was served. 2 years after first contact, human forces launched Operation Nemesis, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Lisa Carter commanded Earth's hybrid fleet as it jumped into hyperspace, carrying humanity's message to every corner of Zephyrian territory. The message was simple: Earth remembered its enemies and justice would be served. The first target was a Zephyrian supply depot in the Alpha Centauri system. The alien base had been built to support further expansion into human space, but instead became the site of the Empire's first major defeat outside of Earth. Carter's fleet emerged from hyperspace, like avenging angels bringing destruction to those who had threatened humanity's home. Navigator Paul Kennedy guided the human task forces through hyperspace using captured Zephyrian charts that had been improved by human mathematicians. The alien navigation systems were efficient but predictable, while human modifications made the fleet capable of movements that Zephyrian commanders could not anticipate or counter. The attack on Alpha Centauri lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the alien facility. More importantly, human forces captured dozens of Zephyrian personnel who provided intelligence about other enemy positions. The aliens discovered that humans were not just effective at warfare, they were methodical about gathering information for future operations. Dr. Rachel Murphy had developed psychological warfare techniques specifically designed to break alien Morale, her understanding of Zephyrian psychology, came from studying captured personnel and intercepted communications. Murphy's methods were so effective that enemy commanders began surrendering rather than face human interrogation techniques. The psychological impact of Operation Nemesis spread through the Zephyrian Empire faster than human ships could travel. News that a primitive species had successfully attacked an alien military base challenged everything the Empire believed about their superiority. Panic began spreading through frontier colonies as rumors of human capabilities grew with each retelling. Human tactics in space combat proved as devastating as they had been on Earth. Captain Helen Brooks led boarding parties that captured Zephyrian warships and turned them against their former owners. The sight of their own vessels firing on Zephyrian positions was breaking the morale of alien crews, who had never faced an enemy that could match their technology. The aliens tried to adapt their strategies, but found that humans evolved faster than they could change. Every tactic the Zephyrians developed was countered within days as human forces shared information and modified their approaches. The rigid military doctrine that had conquered dozens of worlds became a liability against an enemy that never stopped. Learning, back on Earth, civilians had transformed the planet into an impregnable fortress while simultaneously supporting interstellar operations. Factory supervisor Mike Thompson oversaw production facilities that were producing more advanced spacecraft than Zephyrian shipyards. The industrial capacity that humans had developed over centuries was now focused on a single goal, the Zephyrian Empire watched in horror as their frontier colonies fell one by one to human attacks. What had begun as raids against military targets evolved into liberation campaigns that freed entire worlds from alien occupation. The species that had once terrorized the galaxy were learning what it felt like to be hunted. Engineer Lily Thompson's latest starship designs incorporated lessons learned from every battle. Human vessels were now superior to Zephyrian ships in every measurable category and crewed by people who viewed alien conquest as a personal insult requiring violent correction. The technological advantage that had made the Empire dominant was disappearing. Communications specialist Kate Sullivan had expanded her network to include freed alien worlds. Former Zephyrian subjects were providing intelligence about enemy positions and joining human forces in attacks against their former oppressors. The Empire was discovering that their conquered peoples had been waiting for someone to show them how to fight back. The liberation of the Kepler system became a turning point in the war. The planet had been under Zephyrian control for 30 years, but human forces freed it in a single day. The alien garrison surrendered without resistance when human ships appeared in orbit carrying weapons that could crack planets. What shocked Zephyrian observers was that humans did not occupy the worlds they liberated. Instead, they provided the freed populations with weapons technology and training, then moved on to the next target. Earth was creating a galaxy-wide alliance of species united by hatred of Zephyrian oppression. Admiral Carter received reports from across known space about alien forces retreating toward their home systems. The empire that had expanded for centuries was contracting as human pressure forced them to abandon frontier territories. More importantly, the retreat was accelerating as panic spread through alien ranks. Master Sergeant Carl Douglas had established training facilities on liberated worlds where former Zephyrian subjects learned human fighting techniques. The methods that had defeated alien forces on Earth were being taught to dozens of species who had suffered under Imperial rule. The galaxy was learning to fight back. The Zephyrian High Command made desperate attempts to negotiate but found that humans were not interested in diplomacy. Every offer of peace was rejected with the same message: unconditional surrender or complete destruction. The empire that had never shown mercy to conquered peoples would receive none in return. Fleet Captain Tony Mitchell led deep strike missions that attacked Zephyrian core systems. His squadrons could appear anywhere in enemy territory, strike with overwhelming force, and disappear before defensive fleets could respond. The psychological impact of these raids was devastating to alien morale. The aliens tried to use their remaining advantages in numbers and defensive positions, but found that humans had answers for everything. Siege warfare techniques developed. over millennia of human conflict were being applied to alien fortifications with devastating effectiveness. No Zephyrian position was considered impregnable anymore. As human forces approached the heart of the Zephyrian Empire, the aliens finally understood what they were facing. They had not attacked a primitive world, but had awakened a species that would accept nothing less than the complete destruction of those who threatened their home. The empire that had ruled through fear was about to learn what terror truly meant. The galaxy watched as humanity demonstrated that conquest was a dangerous game, when played against people who remembered their enemies and never forgave those who hurt their children. 3 years after their arrival, the Zephyrian Empire faced complete collapse, and the galaxy watched in amazement as a primitive species achieved the impossible. Human forces had not only liberated every conquered world, but systematically destroyed the aliens' capacity for further aggression. The empire that had ruled through superior technology was surrendering to people they had once considered beneath notice. Fleet Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's first purpose-built dreadnought, as the Zephyrian Emperor's ship approached under a flag of surrender. The massive human vessel was a testament to what Earth's people could accomplish when unified by purpose. Every system on the ship was superior to alien equivalents, and the crew was composed of volunteers who had fought since the first day of invasion. The Zephyrian Emperor himself came aboard to deliver his people's unconditional surrender. The being, who had ruled dozens of star systems, was now a broken figure facing representatives of a species he had tried to enslave. Admiral Carter accepted the surrender documents with the same coldness the aliens had once shown to their victims. "Your empire is finished," Carter told the Emperor as he signed the terms that would dismantle Zephyrian military power forever. "Your fleets are destroyed, your colonies are free, and your people will never again threaten innocent worlds. This is what happens when you mistake human civilization for human weakness." The surrender ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, so every species could witness the end of Zephyrian dominance. The message was clear: a new power had emerged from Earth, and they would not tolerate aggression against any peaceful world. Humanity had become the protector that the galaxy had been waiting for. Ambassador Ellen Price addressed the Galactic Council for the first time in human history. Her speech was brief, but every word carried the weight of a species that had proven their strength through victory. The diplomatic corps that had once ignored Earth now listened with respectful attention to humanity's representative. "Earth remembers its enemies," Price told the assembled delegates. "We remember every world that suffered under Zephyrian rule and every species that was enslaved by their empire. We fought not just for our own freedom, but for the liberation of all oppressed peoples. The galaxy is now free because humans do not forget those who threaten our home." The transformation of galactic politics was immediate and complete. Species that had lived in fear of Zephyrian expansion now looked to Earth for protection. Human technology was being shared freely with former alien subjects, while Zephyrian worlds were placed under strict oversight to prevent future aggression. General Maya Rodriguez established the Terran Defense Coalition with headquarters in the rebuilt city of Denver. The organization that bore the name of the first human city destroyed by aliens would ensure that no species would ever again face conquest alone. Veterans of the Earth Liberation War became the backbone of a military force dedicated to galactic peace. The irony was not lost on human observers that the aliens had created their own worst enemy. By attacking Earth, they had united a species that had spent millennia fighting among themselves. The Zephyrians had given humans common cause and the tools to pursue that cause across the stars. Dr. Ben Clark's research teams had achieved technological breakthroughs that revolutionized space travel and communication. The scientist who had reverse-engineered alien weapons was now developing systems that would connect every free world in the galaxy. Human innovation combined with captured alien knowledge was creating possibilities neither species had imagined alone. Captain Jake Morrison returned to Earth orbit aboard the first human-built exploration vessel designed for peaceful purposes. The man who had witnessed the invasion from space now commanded ships that carried human settlers to new worlds. The species that had been attacked for their planet was now expanding across the galaxy. The Zephyrian homeworld became a monument to the consequences of unprovoked aggression. The planet was not destroyed, but transformed into a memorial for all the worlds the Empire had conquered. Former imperial palaces became museums dedicated to the victims of alien oppression, while Zephyrian citizens learned to live without the military that had defined their culture. Engineer Lily Thompson designed the first human starships built specifically for exploration rather than warfare. These vessels carried scientists, diplomats, and settlers to worlds that had been closed to peaceful contact during the era of Zephyrian expansion. Humanity was fulfilling the promise of interstellar travel that the aliens had perverted into conquest. The liberation of the galaxy had taken less time than anyone thought possible. Human forces had moved with such speed and effectiveness that entire star systems were freed before Zephyrian reinforcements could respond. The military machine that had dominated known space for centuries was dismantled in months. Master Sergeant Carl Douglas established military academies on dozens of worlds where former Zephyrian subjects learned to defend themselves. The techniques that had liberated Earth were being taught to species across the galaxy. Never again would any world face conquest without the knowledge and tools needed to fight back. Communications specialist Kate Sullivan created a galactic network that connected every free world in the galaxy. Her system ensured that if any species faced threat, all others would know immediately and respond with overwhelming force. The isolation that had made conquest possible was ended forever. Children played in rebuilt Earth cities while overhead human starships patrolled the solar system and beyond. The planet that had faced destruction was now the center of a peaceful galactic community. Earth's children would grow up in a universe where their species was respected and feared by any who might threaten innocent worlds. The final scene showed the monument erected in Central Park where the first alien landing had occurred. The inscription was simple but carried a message that every species in the galaxy understood. They came for Earth and found humanity. Let all who would threaten peaceful worlds remember what happened here. The Zephyrian Empire became a cautionary tale told throughout the galaxy about the dangers of unprovoked aggression. They had come seeking easy conquest and instead found a species that turned invasion into extinction, occupation into obliteration, and conquest into the complete annihilation of those who threatened their home. Earth stood ready, and the galaxy was safe because sometimes the best defense is overwhelming offense applied with the fury of a species that protects its own.